Scott Conway with mothersraingsons.com talking about prom season. This is prom date number 3. We're talking about the prom budget today. Of course, one of the things you need to make sure is clear with your son is that he knows what you are providing and what you're not providing. For instance, on most of the prom dates that I went on, if it was my actual prom, my parents were going to let me drive a nice car. If I was just being the friendly escort to just a friend, which was most of the proms I attended, then I would have my own car to drive. But I wasn't going to get the fancy car. I got to drive a Jaguar when I was taking proms on the romantic prom dates. But when it was just friendly dates, then I would drive my own car that I had at the time because we were just going as friends. And so it's good if your son understands what you will and will not be providing. So if you have access to certain cars, if you're going to maybe pay for the flowers or you're going to pay for the tuxedo, so your son knows what he has to pay for himself and what you'll be providing some funds for. Certainly very often if your son is going to have to earn the money himself somewhere, so he knows what his earning opportunities are, he knows how much money he has. One of the important things for him to really take a look at is, what are you going to do in order to get the money? How much money are you comfortable and confident you're going to be able to get? And what are you going to be prepared to spend? Finding out how much things cost. So then one of the things to know is find out how much tuxedo rentals are in your area. Is your son also going to need to rent the shoes to go with it? Or does he already have some black dress shoes or some adequate black shoes that he can wear with his tuxedo? Is he going to need, even a simple thing is to buy some socks to go with it? So what is he going to need to spend on that? How much do corsages cost? And how do corsages work? I mean, mostly I recommend wrist corsages, but if someone wants a pin on corsage, how does that work? And to be able to practice pinning things on. Boutonnieres to practice just in case your date doesn't know how to pin a boutonniere on, how to pin one on your own lapel. And things like that are skills that need to be cultivated. But for the budget aspects, also understanding how much dinner is going to cost, how you handle tipping at a nice restaurant, so that your son understands that it's not just what he sees, it's what he sees in the menu plus tax plus tip, so he's not caught by surprise. Now, very often we have sons, by the time they're getting to the prom, they have enough dating experience, enough dining experience, enough going places experience, that they already know these things. But for some percentage of sons, this is their first time doing this. It's the first time doing this, at least all on their own. It's their first time being totally responsible for all of this and having to be ready for it. Maybe going to one of the nicer restaurants, it's easy to decide, oh, well, I've heard good things about this. This is always the nice place people in our area go to, so let's go to that one. But for him to be able to see the menu, see the prices, so that he doesn't get sticker shock when he's there. So if he's accustomed to going someplace that has maybe $15 meals, and he takes his date out someplace fancy, and he's looking at the menu, and all of a sudden he realizes that it's all in pieces, and the steak is $30, and each individual a la carte thing is another $7, and he's going to end up spending $150 to feed both of them. And, all of these things you don't want to catch your son by surprise. So to know his particular restaurant, to price things there, to be ready with his budget, to be ready with the decisions he needs to be able to make, to have the cash on hand, or to have a credit card that he's capable of signing on if he's doing it maybe on a debit card, and make sure he has these things covered. Parking fees, that the tickets for the prom are already paid for, certainly probably well before the prom in that case, but understand that's a budget item for him to understand. If he's borrowing a car, say from someone, put some gas back in it and make sure he has the budget ready to do that. And if there's any after prom and any stopping for snacks somewhere along the way, because if you have dinner at 6 and you're going to have after prom at midnight and you want to grab a bite to eat in between, or you're going to go to after prom until the wee hours of the morning, or you're going to get an early morning snack or maybe even a breakfast and have that budgeted in there as well. So there's a lot of things that sometimes catch a son off guard. And depending upon where you are and who you're going out with as to who's expected to pay. I mean, very often, despite all of the talk of things being much more egalitarian, unless other arrangements are made, generally speaking, the man is still expected to pay, certainly in any kind of a romantic situation. I mean, if you also have daughters, you have some idea how expensive proms are for daughters, and a lot of their money is getting spent on the front end and getting the dress and all of that. If your son's going with friends, it's probably already arranged, but if it's going to be everyone pays for their own ticket, everyone pays for their own meal. That should be worked out in advance, just to make sure everybody's clear and make sure that everyone actually knows for sure that that is the deal. But my strong suggestion is that ideally a son should always have a little bit of extra money, because you never know when something's going to come up and he's going to be in a social situation where he honestly just might be expected to pay. And so these are things that ideally are worked out in advance. So this is Scott Conway with MothersRaisingSons.com with our prom series of lessons.